Every team's most valuable role player. Today we'll be looking at the Eastern Conference. Last week we did the Western Conference. And before we get into it, I'd just like to talk about what is a role player. For me, a role player is a bench player or a starter that does the little things and contributes in a big way on offense or defense or both. Anyone but a top 3 player on the team, depending on the team. Now let's get right into it. Starting off, we have the Atlanta Hawks, and I picked Clint Capella for this one. This one was a little bit tough, but I considered Clint Capella their most valuable because of the way he holds down their defense. Obviously, he's huge for the Hawks, having their best player, Trae Young, isn't the best defensive option, but Clint Capella holds down the interior, which is huge in basketball games, as well as he has got a little bit of help on the perimeter from other guys such as DeAndre Hunter and DeJounte Murray. Next, we have the Boston Celtics. I picked Derek White. Derek White's an all-around player. He showed us that throughout this whole season, and especially in the postseason. He's got really good defense, all defensive team. He's got solid offense, good 15 points a game, solid playmaking. Actually, I think he's an underrated playmaker. And that's why after this Marcus Smart trade and everything, and Malcolm Brogdon's gone as well, I think Derek White, they're sliding him into that starting point guard spot, which I think will fit really well. Next, we have the Brooklyn Nets, and we've got Cameron Johnson. He's a really good shooter, obviously. I think he's an underrated scorer. He's known mostly for his shooting, but he can drive when needed. He can get layups. He can take middies. His catch and shoot game is on point. He's really good for the Nets spacing wise and as well. His defense is solid enough where you could play him 30 minutes a night and it won't hurt you too much. Next we have the Charlotte Hornets. I picked Kelly Oubre Jr. Known for his good looks, obviously. I think the way he contributes the most is shooting. He's got some solid defense, and obviously for the Hornets this season, he was some wing depth, which they kind of lacked. Especially with Hayward being there only half the time. He definitely contributed lots at their small forward shooting guard position, and he had a really good year this season. I think he had averaged 20 points per game, which is a career high for him. Very unexpected, if I'm being honest with you, but he did nice. Next, we got the Chicago Bulls. I picked Alex Caruso for his All-NBA defense. Him and Lonzo, when Lonzo was healthy, were leading the league. They had one of the best defenses in the league, their best perimeter defensive duo. They were amazing. I think, we don't know much about Lonzo right now, what's happening with him, but I think even him with some other point guards, some other wings, could lead a really good defense around Zach LaVine and, Vucevic in the middle, which is why you need that perimeter defense to be amazing. Next, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I picked Ricky Rubio for this one. They don't have much depth, that's why I went with Rubio, because he is a solid playmaker off the bench. He keeps things flowing nicely when Garland is sitting, as well as he's a really good mentor for Darius Garland. I think that's why they brought him back this season, or this last offseason, was to mentor Garland even more throughout this season. Next, we have the Detroit Pistons. I picked Bojan Bogdanovic. He's their starting power forward. Sometimes he'll play the small forward as well. And he's mostly there just for his shooting, because this team at the start lacked a lot of shooting. Then they got Bojan, Alec Burks, all these guys to shoot the ball alongside Cade Cunningham and their solid big man. But yeah, he's just there to shoot the ball, plays solid defense. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him on a new team at the trade deadline. A contending team, because the Pistons do have lots of young depth now, so it would be the time to move on from him. Next, we got the Miami Heat. I picked Caleb Martin because he's an all-around player, one of my favorite players on the team. At the start of the season, I remember we lost PJ Tucker, and a lot of people were doubting the Miami Heat, myself included as a Heat fan. They were talking about Caleb Martin starting at the 4, and everyone was unsure. And he proved a lot of people wrong. He was a solid defender, perimeter defender all the time. He was a solid shooter, and he could do more than just shoot the ball as well. He could drive, he could dunk, he could jump pretty high. I love it. And especially in the playoffs, he was a huge piece for them, especially the Eastern Conference Finals. He was their leading scorer, basically, for the second half of those 7 games. Caleb Martin was really nice. Next, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. I picked Bobby Portis, known for his offense, of course, and his giant eyeballs. Just kidding. But I think he's a fan favorite over there in Milwaukee. Good 3-point shooter, good offense, good spark plug off the bench, and he fits really well alongside Giannis and all the other guys on that squad. Next, we have the New York Knicks. I picked Mitchell Robinson for his defense. Obviously, he was holding Knicks defense, the interior defense together, and when we saw him out for the second half-ish of that regular season, you could definitely notice a difference in the Knicks offense. And when he came back in the playoffs, or just before, and they played the Cavs, he was huge in that series against the Cavs. He was outplaying Evan Mobley and Jared Allen at the same time. He was better than both of them combined. It was pretty amazing to watch. I think he's huge for the Knicks, especially considering they aspire to have a good defense with their coach Tibbs, but he's huge for them. Next, we have the Orlando Magic. I picked Markelle Fultz because he was a very solid playmaker for this team this season. Obviously, he sort of revived his career in some saying. He was a number 1 pick. Everyone thought he was done for. He went to the Magic. They needed playmaking, and he filled that role very well. His defense is solid as well. Not amazing by any means, not bad at all though. The one thing that lacks is his shooting, but if hopefully that can come back around, Markelle Fultz could be a starting point guard in this league. Next up, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. I picked PJ Tucker for this one because Philadelphia's got a lot of offense all around. I think PJ Tucker fills their defensive need a little bit, and he's a little bit more than defense. He's a good defender. He's a really good offensive rebounder, underrated rebounder, and he sets a lot of screens, makes up small plays on offense to contribute to the team rather than just standing in the corner, which he does sometimes, but other times he's contributing in other ways that doesn't necessarily show up in the box score. Next, we have the Toronto Raptors. I picked Chris Boucher, one of my favorite Raptors. He's a good rebounder, he's a good shooter, and he's got good rate defense. I like him a lot. I think he's a huge piece for this team off the bench, contributes very well, and is very important to their success. Now moving on to the Washington Wizards, I picked Daniel Gafford. He's their starting center for the second half of the season. He fit really well alongside Kristaps Porzingis now that he's gone. But now for Daniel Gafford, it's interesting to see what he'll do with the Wizards. Obviously, he'll stay as their starting center, but if they move 100% towards rebuild, could we see him moved in the next year or two, or will he be a part of that? It's interesting to see, but he definitely solidified himself as a starting center in this league. And last but not least, we have the Indiana Pacers. I picked Benedict Mathurin, rookie last season, one of my favorite rookies. He was a spark plug for this team. Came off the bench, gave him a nice 18 points per game. Start of the season, he was really hot. Then he kind of settled down a little bit. But he was still a good player, a good contributor, and he's got okay defense. He's not bad on defense by any means. Sometimes his reads could be a little bit better, but he's got the athleticism, he's got some size. He could be a solid 2-guard in this league. I would like to see him start alongside Tyrese Halliburton next season, but it's not up to me. But we shall see. Anyways, that's all my role players of the East. If you disagree or have any honorable mentions you'd like to say, drop them down below. And if you made it this far and enjoyed, please leave a like. It helps out a lot. See you next time.